Welcome to the Chicago Money Show. We help you get informed, feel engaged, and have fun with your finances. I'm your host, Bridget Sullivan-Ramel, and I own a fee-only financial planning practice in Chicago. What's the latest on buying and selling cars? What insider tips can get you the best total deal? We'll dissect the car buying process, and you'll learn how you can be smarter with your money while getting a car you love to drive. Today, Ray and Zach Shefska are with us. Ray retired after 40 years in the automobile business, and he teamed up with his son, Zach, and started YAA. Now they help people through the internet to make buying or leasing your next car fast, simple, and fair. And we're taking your calls. So please call us at the number on your screen. More on Ray and Zach. In 2019, Ray, his son Zach, and software engineer Raj Saheli started Your Advocate Alliance, which includes a website, YouTube channel, and podcast. It's been a smashing success. They're like family financial planners, which is what I do. We're both in industries where there's a big gap between what the regular person knows and what the expert knows. This makes it easy for the regular person to get ripped off. But we both started businesses that say, hey, let's be upfront with our customers and clients and give them objective advice and be very upfront about what they pay us. And we're taking your calls. So call us at the number on the screen. Welcome, Ray and Zach.
Well, thank you for having us, Bridget. It's great to be here.
Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Bridget.
Okay, so Zach, let's have you start us off. What should you expect now if you want to buy a new car?
It's gonna be not so fun, which, to be fair, Dad, it was never that fun. But unfortunately, Bridget, what we've seen over the past, I guess it's 18 months or so since kind of the pandemic started, new car supply has never been shorter. And I know, Dad, the stat you like to quote is on-hand inventory. It used to be, when you were working in the dealerships, what was it, 4 million vehicles in on-hand inventory? And what is it nowadays? Closer to one?
It's a tad less than 1 million.
Oh.
Big
So if
difference.
you take that many vehicles out of supply, ultimately what happens is dealerships start adding all sorts of innovative and creative fees to charge you more. Now, fortunately, Bridget, we are starting to see some of the effects of increased interest rates and a slight slowdown in consumer demand. So, the days of $10,000 markups are becoming the days of $5,000 markups. But we are seeing some light at the end of the tunnel in the sense that some brands, some manufacturers actually have a lot of inventory relative to their peers. And so in our community, the YAA community, we are finding deals. You can get vehicles at or below MSRP, but it's definitely tougher than it was even a couple of years ago.
So you're
Absolutely.
saying, yeah, it sounds like if you're flexible about what you want to buy, you might be able to seek out a better deal. But if you're like focused on, I want this car, this color, then you've got to be flexible about the price.
Well, you either have to be flexible about the price or about the time. Some of the interesting data we've been able to find, for example, one of the hottest cars in the United States right now is a Toyota RAV4 Prime. That's the one that has the battery electric powertrain in there with the internal combustion engine. Wait times for a new, who knows what year model you're going to get. It's 18 to 24 months. Bridget, is what we're seeing from our community members, that you have to wait 18 to 24 months. So you can either pay a $10,000 or $15,000 markup for the one RAV Prime, maybe in all of California,
if you can find it, right?
If you can find it, or you can go and you can get on a wait list, or you can go find the comparable, I don't know, Chrysler product, and you can get it for under MSRP. That's the reality of where we currently are.
Okay, great. And what's the situation with used cars?
Well, used cars, we are finally, thank goodness, starting to see some major depreciation at the wholesale level, at the auctions. Between the information we've received from Cox Automotive and from Black Book, in the month of August, wholesale values dropped about 4%, and the first on across the board, but some subsets have been hit harder than others. And so far, the first week in September, we saw another 1% drop in wholesale values. So Retail values typically trail wholesale values, but with the wholesale values going down, we expect to see retail asking prices to decline, or dealerships becoming more willing to negotiate the asking price of the vehicles that they have advertised.
Okay, great. So let's talk about negotiating with dealerships. So I recommend that people look at the price of the car, the trade-in value of what, if they're trading in a car, and financing. And like there's three separate things going on. Let's dissect this. So let's talk about the price of the vehicle. How do you recommend figuring out what a fair price is to pay?
Zach, I'll let you handle that.
So Bridget, one of the really interesting things that I learned following in my dad's footsteps and actually going against his advice of never going into the car business like he did, one of the interesting things I learned is that there are multiple prices when you
Right.
try and buy a car. So the first thing that we like to level set with people is what you are negotiating on in those one of three transactions, because you're spot on. There's three different things. You are negotiating the out the door price of a vehicle. On a new vehicle, that's going to be the selling price, so any discount or markup from MSRP, plus applicable fees, add-ons, accessories. And at the end of the day, what's a fair price what's a fair out the door price on a new vehicle entirely depends on, like we were talking about before, the make, the model, the trim. And so, for example, we are seeing Ram pickup trucks. You can get 10-12% under MSRP versus the Toyota RAV4 Prime. A fair deal there on a new one might be MSRP and waiting. On the used car side, it's still an out the door price that you want to negotiate. But one of the things that's really interesting that we're seeing in the used car market is that you can actually kind of pressure test what a fair price for a used vehicle is, because there are so many online car dealers that'll actually buy used cars directly from people. So one of my favorite tactics, one of my favorite things to do is if I'm searching to buy, let's say a Toyota RAV4, but this time a 2017, I'll find it. I'll use our car search. I'll find it. I'll go to Carvana and I'll see, okay, well, what would Carvana pay to buy this car? And if there's a huge price difference, then that's to me indicating, okay, the price might be a little too high. If the prices are kind of close, that's one of those little indicators that I look at to say, okay, maybe it's a more fair deal. And like my dad was saying, you can negotiate on used cars. It's like heaven sent, Bridget. It was 18 months of used cars appreciating. Doesn't mean the prices are fair right now, but we're finally seeing people go in and say, hey, I see your advertised price is $40,000. I want 37 out the door. And you know what? They're getting close to it, which is really reassuring to see.
Okay, great. And now let's talk about, if you're buying a car at a dealership, what about extras? How do they come into play?
Well, dealerships like to add several things, if I may, having spent 43 years in dealership environment. And right now they love to add a market adjustment, an additional dealer markup, because of the shortage of inventory, supply and demand, the basics of economics. So that's the first thing dealerships like to add. And we've seen numbers anywhere from $500 to $100,000, depending on the vehicle. The other thing that they like to do is they like to force the customers to buy dealer installed accessories, some of dubious value, such as nitrogen tire fill, VIN etch in case your car is stolen, because the first thing the police are going to look at when they recover a car is, well, was the VIN number etched on the glass? No, I don't think that's really what they're looking for. And other packages, protection packages, friends and family packages, whatever a dealer can dream up. And trust me, dealers have a vivid imagination. So you see those types of things added to the asking price of the cars. And as I always like to remind people, especially when it comes to additional dealer markups, that's just an ask. It's not an absolute mandatory thing that you have to pay for. The dealer's asking for it. And it's like any transaction or any contract. You can either accept what the dealer is saying, you can reject it, or you can amend it. And you can amend it by negotiating from their number down to a lower number. And that's what we recommend people do.
Okay, and do extended warranties go into this bucket of add-ons, or are they a thing into themselves?
Zach, I'll let you handle that one.
I get triggered by extended warranties. So unfortunately, Bridget, extended warranties more and more frequently are showing up on what's called the front end of the deal. So you're going in, you're
Oh,
saying,
okay.
hey, here's the MSRP. Here are the add-ons like the accessories, the nitrofill, and oh, there's a $3,000 protection plan. It's like, okay, well, what is that? Oh, well, it's our, extended warranty. We recommend more than anything else, because you go in and you're buying that extended warranty that you didn't even realize you were buying because you thought you were buying a car. You have no magnitudes of scale to know if that price is fair or not. Like, think for a second. You price shop? I price shop pretty much everything. You go in and you're getting hit with, no, here's a $3,000 extended warranty. Don't you want your used car to be protected? Take a moment, step away. When they say, well, you have to buy it today. No, you don't. They will sell it to you tomorrow. They will happily sell it to you tomorrow. Google search, go to our website, search, get a quote. I mean, literally just do any other type of cross shopping that you would normally do, and don't feel pressured that you have to buy those things. We see so many folks, unfortunately, Bridget, they message us, they comment to us, they end up looking at their purchase order, and they thought they bought a car for $15,000, and they end up buying a car plus a service contract and extended warranty for $18,000. And they ask us, is there anything I can do? Fortunately, with extended warranties, you can cancel them. And every single one has a prorated refund.
Oh,
So
interesting.
if you accidentally
Didn't know
bought
that.
an extended warranty, Google search or go type in your URL, cancelmyextendedwarranty.com. We actually wrote an entire guide. We have a finance manager, former finance manager on our team. She wrote an entire guide with a sample letter you can copy and paste and send to the dealer. You can cancel it. You can get your money back. So if that ever happened to you, you've got a path of recourse at least.
Yeah, and one of the things in my industry that we talk about is there's a bias toward when you're buying an expensive item, it kind of goes with your calculation system, your mental calculating. So you'll think like $3,000. Oh, I'm buying a $40,000 car. That's not that much. Like, that's the thing. You're not thinking, oh, that's 6 months worth of groceries. Or that's my rent for 2 or 3 months. You compare it to this big price instead of bringing it back to your regular life when you might be more circumspect about it. Okay.
And if I may, we talked about negotiating the selling price of vehicle. You brought up financing. The unfortunate thing we see, Bridget, is people finance this $3,000 warranty over 84 months at their 7.5% interest rate. You don't realize the damage that's being done in that moment. And that's why you mentioned the selling price of the car, the out the door price you negotiate, the car you're selling, not trading in, the car you're selling, and the financing. Go to a credit union, go literally anywhere, just get a pre-approval and do not rely on the dealership, because Pops, as I know you and I can both attest to this, the moment you're sitting in front of the finance manager and you're getting pressured into this, you're buying a $30,000 car. So sure, what's $3,000? Oh, it's only $10 more a month. There's repercussions there.
They always bring it back to that. Like, they don't tell you. Yeah. So, and I've done that myself, gone to the credit union and then brought that, here's what the credit union interest rate is. And the dealer matched it, which was kind of sweet, actually. I have to say.
Well,
For us.
and dealers would want to match it, because dealers receive what's known as back-end money, and that's extra money they make from the lender for having placed a loan with them. So if they match the credit union rate, and even if the rate that they were given from the bank was a little less than matching your rate, they're going to pick up extra money for that. They're going to pick up what's known as a reserve.
Okay.
And sometimes, even if they sell you the money for what the bank charged them the money for, they still get a flat. And a flat is usually somewhere between $250 and $300 for having placed that loan with that lender. So there's always money to be made at the dealership by matching your credit union's rates.
Awesome. So we've got a call. So caller, thanks for calling. Please give us your first name and tell us your neighborhood you're calling from, and then proceed with your question. Go ahead, Troy.
And I want to know, is it better to buy a car in October if you want to get a new car, considering, the 23s are coming out and the dealerships want to get rid of the old ones?
Yeah, that's a great question. Is that a good idea, Ray, to buy in October, to wait until they're trying to get rid of presumably trying to get rid of their old 2022s?
Well, the sad reality, Bridget, is there aren't really any old remaining 2022s. The dealerships that would have vehicles like that would be some of your Stellantis brands, Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge, some of those brands, Ford perhaps, but for the most part, especially with your Asian brands and a lot of your European brands, all those 2022s have been spoken for well before they got to the dealership.
Okay, and normal years, is buying in October a good strategy?
Normal years, the best time to buy is the last week of December.
Oh,
That
okay.
is when traditionally the manufacturers offer the largest incentives. Dealers are trying to hit year-end goals. The manufacturers are trying to hit year-end goals. So between Christmas and New Year's Day is typically the busiest week at a dealership, and it's when the dealerships and the manufacturers are both their most aggressive price-wise.
And then I had a question emailed to me from a viewer about the end of the month. So say you can't wait until the end of between Christmas and New Year's. You've got vacation plans, some are fabulous, and you're not buying a car then. Do you get a better deal at the end of the month, the last few days of the month, or is that not true?
Well, typically you will, or you were able to in the past. In
Right. Okay.
today's market, might not be as quite as aggressive as they had been in the past, because a lot of the manufacturers are no longer setting sales objectives for their dealerships to try
Oh,
and hit, because they
interesting.
can't provide them with the inventory to hit them.
Interesting.
Um,
Okay.
Yeah.
but still, dealerships have a strong desire to close a month as effectively as they can. So they're typically a little more room for negotiating the last few days of a month.
Okay, great. And how about what do you suggest if you're interested in ordering a new car from a dealership?
Zach, you want to handle that one?
We have great resources on this front. So I will say, we'll dig into it here. If you're going to order a vehicle, what you should know. I will say, if you want follow on, we've done role play videos on this. We've got a lot of information. So definitely Google search afterwards. If you're going to factory order, be prepared and understand that you're going to place a deposit. If a dealership wants to make that a non-refundable deposit, then you need to make sure you know what you're signing. And so we really encourage, non-refundable deposits can be fine. You need a signed buyer's order that says exactly what you're buying. I'm not saying you're signing your loan paperwork. We've seen so many folks, unfortunately, Bridget, do that, and they're paying loan payments and interest on a vehicle that hasn't arrived yet. But the big thing is, be prepared to put a deposit down and be prepared to ask for a signed buyer's order, not the signature of the salesperson, the signature of the general manager or the sales manager, and your signature. This is the price I am going to pay when the vehicle arrives. And you do financing when the vehicle arrives. You do not sign any loan paperwork until you have a car to drive off of the lot. But we get in depth on kind of the finer points of that. If you just search factory order YAA, our mugs will probably pop up.
Okay, cool. We have another call. So again, caller, give us your name and your neighborhood, and then proceed with your question.
Hi, my name is Rob, and I'm calling from Westtown. I have a question about negotiations. You always hear about negotiations with car dealerships or your salesperson. Is that such a thing? And if it is, can you give any tips or ways that maybe save a few dollars or maybe get freebies?
Any more? So Ray, more negotiating tips. Thanks, Rob.
And I will just comment, Bridget, unfortunately, the calls aren't coming through on our end. So
great.
So I was just want to give my dad
Okay.
props really quickly. He did a great job with that last one. I mean, you crushed it, Dad. You couldn't hear it, but you crushed it.
So next question is about negotiating. Can we give any tips to get a good deal and maybe freebies?
Good tips to get. I mean, you just the only tip I can give you, and right now, unless you're looking at a Stellantis product, right now you're not typically going to be able to get quite a lot. But as I've said to many people, the worst they can say is no if you ask for something. So ask. If the freebie you might want a bed liner for the pickup truck, ask. What's the worst they can say? Well, we can't give you the bed liner. Good. Can you sell me the bed liner for half of what the normal price would be? So it never hurts to ask. And I would preface it when you ask, say, how can you help me make this more affordable so that I can complete the transaction today? What can you
And
do
if I
for
may,
me?
Makes sense.
if I may, Bridget and Pops, we are seeing less negotiability on the out the door price because I got no cars. So why would I discount the price? You know what we're seeing the negotiability on those other two pieces of the car deal. So for example, if you have a vehicle to sell, please do not just take the first trade-in offer from the dealership. Please do not. There are so many other paths of recourse, selling to a private party, to Carvana, to Vroom, many, many different areas to sell your car for more. So that's an area to negotiate. And on the financing piece, we see deals that on the front end are fine, go entirely awry on the back end, especially because a great line to use if you're a finance manager when you're giving someone a 7.5% rate. Well, the Fed's raising rates. I mean, this is the best we can. No. Those two areas are where we're seeing, and we're hearing stories from our community. That's where things can either be really positive or really negative. Are you going to be able to get them to negotiate $500 off the selling price, the out the door price? Probably not, because the car they got on the lot's the one they got.
Interesting. So I have a couple questions from what you just said. So the Vroom and the Carvana, now, are those legitimate businesses to deal with? Have you heard a lot of complaints about them? I don't even know. I haven't bought a car in a while. So yeah, are they like, because I know they're new kids on the block. They weren't even around the last time I bought a car.
They probably won't be around. Well, no, they'll still probably be around.
Don't say
They'll
that.
still be
Yeah.
around. Bridget, selling a car to them, great. Do we recommend buying cars from those online car dealers? No. And Dad, maybe you can speak to the class action lawsuits, the actions and advisories from the Better Business Bureau, things like that.
Okay.
Well, especially with Carvana, well, actually, and Vroom has too. Both of them have had tremendous issues with getting titles and registrations to their customers once they bought the vehicles. The state of Illinois suspended Carvana's license for a while because of that very issue. Carvana swore up and down that they would address it, and the state was gracious enough to reinstate their ability to sell cars. And then the same issues reared their ugly heads again. So the state has shut them down temporarily again. It's a mess. They're a mess. Let me just put it that way.
Okay. And what about if you do want to buy a used car, what are your recommendations? And you don't want to use a dealer.
Well, okay. To me, there's a couple different ways to go. Obviously, people talk about Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist and things like that.
Facebook. Okay. Yeah.
But I would recommend, if you're looking to get a car at a reasonably good price, this is a terrible thing to say, but I'm going to say it. Well, it's the truth. Check the obituaries. It's a terrible thing to say, but oftentimes part of an estate are automobiles, and they have to liquidate those vehicles, and the pricing for those vehicles tends to be better than what it would be in a normal circumstance. So I know it's almost sounds ghoulish, but check the obituaries.
Well, and you might get a car of the epic, I'm sure you use this line, little old lady who only drove the car to church on Sunday.
Well, I don't know if
it might actually be a reality. That was what I got from my dad. Okay, so let's talk about financing. Back to the financing question. So one of the things in my industry that I've read about is the people with car debt have what's called debt drag, and it makes them unhappy, not because of the initial year or so after they buy the car, but 3 years later when they can't buy a house or they're worried about taking a new job because of their car loan. So my question for you is it, if you pay cash for a car, are you getting as good of a deal as if I think it's better for the individual, assuming they have the money, but how is it from the dealer's standpoint? Can you get as good of a deal on the price of the car if you take that away from them, of the financing? You say, I'm not doing this.
Zach, I know you love this topic because I know you're going to bring up one of the FTC proposals.
Sure.
So go ahead.
No, so I'll say, Bridget, so we recommend that you never bring up how you intend to pay for a vehicle when you're negotiating the out the door price. The unfortunate reality that we are seeing frequently today is that dealerships are requiring that you finance the vehicle and you finance it through them. And if you're not interested in doing that, they won't sell you the vehicle. The reason being the back end profits are so, there's so much money to be made there. And I actually do have the FTC, Federal Trade Commission building behind me, because actually there are 3 more days. Yeah, September 12th is the last day for public comments on the FTC's 4 new proposed rules to kind of mitigate some shady car dealer tactics. One of them is non-discriminatory practices for cash buyers. So the FTC is currently accepting public comments, if you're interested, to essentially say, hey, if you pay cash, you're paying the same price as a finance buyer. And we recommend refinancing is a great option. If you are going to refinance a car loan, let's say you financed through the dealership and then, because they forced you to and you had to get the car, fine. Refinance after your first statement comes through. You do not need to use these fancy schmancy refinance websites. Just call up your local credit union. The refinance websites, they make money by charging you fees. The credit union, they don't. So just credit unions. I can't preach it enough.
And so what about leasing versus owning?
Well,
Excuse me, leasing versus loans.
Well, today leasing is not nearly as popular as it had been, and there's 2 reasons for that. The main reason is that there's such a shortage of vehicles that the manufacturers aren't incentivizing either the sale or leasing of their vehicles as much as they have in the past. At one time, leasing accounted for about 30 to 35% of all the vehicles sold. Today, that number's down to about 18%. And the reason for that is the manufacturers just aren't offering any real aggressive lease deals to encourage the people to lease. If you're that person that every 3 years likes to have that shiny new thing, then leasing is probably the way to go, so that you're not saddled with another 3 years worth of payments that you have to worry about if you wanted to get that shiny new thing in 3 years. But in today's market, you're probably better off purchasing it. And if you do finance it, please don't finance it for any more than 72 months. And I hate saying that length of time. I would prefer to see people finance for 48 or 60 months. But there are loans available today upwards of 84 and 96 months, which is almost a mortgage when you think about it.
Right. Okay. So it's time for us to wrap it up. I want to say thank you, Ray and Zach Shefska. Thanks. Zach, if viewers want to find more out about you and what you guys do, what should they do?
Yeah, so thanks. Thank you, Bridget, for having us on. So our YouTube channel, if you just go on the internet and you type in the letters YAA, we should pop up pretty much everywhere. We drop a video every single day. The entire community that we have is to try and support car buyers and all aspects of owning a vehicle, making it more cost effective. Our website, if you're interested in checking it out, you can search for cars there. We talked about extended warranties. Bridget, we sell extended warranties. Crazy thing. We make $500 and we tell everyone that. Wild concept. So if you want to go to the website, join, JOIN, then the letters YAA.com. And then my dad is prolific on Instagram. He's not really, but you should still check it out. Raz is Jazz, RASISJAZ. If you get a new follower tonight, Dad, you're welcome.
Well,
Okay,
thanks.
great. My name's Bridget Sullivan-Mermal. I own a family financial planning firm. Please check out the Chicago Money Show website at chicagomoneyshow.com. You can see our earlier episodes and sign up for our newsletter so that you get a heads up before upcoming shows. If you have questions on this episode or for future episodes, please email us at ask@chicagomoneyshow.com. Thanks for watching.